Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm Carl Kerner, the president of the board of directors of the Queens Library Foundation. We're glad you joined with us tonight to support the library and to honor Brian Lair, Sigrid Nunez, and Jacqueline Woodson for their distinguished contributions to the spoken and written word. Tonight, our honorees will receive the Queens Public Library Award, as well as something very special that only 4 other people in the world have right now, and that is a Queens Public Library Golden Card. You know, a library card is really a key to new worlds. When I was growing up, my card helped me explore so many of them at the Queens Public Library branch. My branch is Seaside. Let's hear it for Seaside. Woo! Seaside was a place of connection for me through countless books, newspapers, magazines. It brought within my reach stories, ideas, people, and places that were far outside my experience. At the same time, it gave me a place to connect with my neighbors and my friends. Now the library offers millions of us not only legacy media, it's a little sad to think that that was legacy media, but also to access the internet, ebooks, streaming music and movies, and so much more. The library is the center of community, and it connects us all. Kids and families count on the library's story times and after-school programs. Teens create podcasts, learn to code, and prepare for college. Job seekers and aspiring entrepreneurs build career opportunities. Older adults enjoy creative aging classes, technology help, and a place to socialize. Asylum seekers and other new Americans obtain ID NYC cards and find live interpretation services, citizenship classes, English classes, and materials in dozens of languages. And in these incredible places that welcome and serve everyone, people of all backgrounds and circumstances connect with their communities and one another. We're so happy to be with you tonight. Thank you for being here and for supporting all that Queens Public Library has to offer. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Earl Simons, the terrific chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Queens Public Library.
Thank you so much, Carl. Greatly appreciate you and all of your dedicated work. Good evening, everyone. I share Carl's excitement about the energy that is here this evening. I'm so honored to be part of this wonderful institution we all know as the Queens Public Library. And it means so much to people in Queens. I want to thank all of you for joining us this evening and want to particularly and especially recognize and thank the elected officials who were represented here this evening. We had Queensborough President Donovan Richards, who was represented by the Deputy Borough President, and also want to again thank the Public Advocate, Jamani Williams, who joined us also at the cocktail reception, as well as City Council Member Julie Wan, because that's extremely important, and we greatly appreciate the support of our local elected officials. The City of New York provides the majority of the library's operating funds, particularly and especially capital funding. And you and your colleagues who are here this evening worked to ensure that we are positioned to provide the services and resources the public relies on. I also want to take this time to express deep thanks to the benefactors of tonight's event: Amazon, Bloomberg Philanthropies, Citi, Resorts World Casino, Carol Sutton Lewis and William Lewis, the Margaret and Daniel Loeb Foundation, and Megan McKay and Alan Thorpe. Please give them all a round of applause. Finally, I would like to recognize the trustees of the Queens Public Library and the foundation members of the board of the Queens Public Library Foundation who are here with us tonight. I ask, could you all please stand so you can be recognized? Thank you. Thank you for your leadership and commitment to this great institution. And now, let us take a closer look, at the many ways the Queens Public Library serves the people and communities of Queens and beyond.
The service we provide in the library makes a difference in our customers' life.
Well, the library mission is to be inclusive, bringing awareness and allowing for dialogue to happen.
I think it's so important for us to bring people up and bring them together, and the library is such a great place to do that.
When a customer has a challenge, the question is, how can we find a way to say yes to this person instead of turning them away or saying no?
Libraries are important for creating and building community, right? A place where everybody gathers.
Wherever you are welcome at the Queens Public Library. We are here to reinforce the values throughout the borough and beyond. Every Queens resident lives within a mile to a mile and a half of the Queens Public Library. We see changing demographics in our communities on a regular basis, and a lot of times when people are coming from different countries, one of their first stops is at a Queens Public Library. So whether it's books that we have on the shelf or the services we're offering, our staff are working to fit the needs of the public. We've always had a focus on teens, but this year we're sharpening our focus. We know that the pandemic has hit teens extremely hard. We're going to be adding more programs, more support services for teenagers through teen centers, in addition to our Far Rockaway Teen Library. And we're about to expand in our Flushing Library, at the Central Library, the Cambria Heights Library, and then create a new teen center at the Long Island City Library.
As youth counselors, we really have connected with the teens here. They have fun here, and that's my favorite thing. Like, today might be painting, tomorrow might be board game tournament. Now we have our studio open. They love making their own music. They love the freedom they have. We have computers and laptops available. And we also have materials for them, whether they're in high school or beginning college. We have those resources available to help them. This is a fun, safe environment for teens to come in and really enjoy themselves and learn about themselves.
I started coming to the library because I had wanted to start to get into reading more. There's actually not a lot of spaces for teens to go. The library is a safe haven where they can talk to the kids around your age or even the adults here because they actually listen really well. Any work that I have to do, I do it here so I can turn it all in, because to me it helps you focus more because it's more of a quiet space. It's a really fun place to go. And I think for some who have a lot going on at home, it could be a good place to be themselves.
Book challenges, book banning really goes against intellectual curiosity, intellectual freedom. And we have a responsibility to make sure we provide both books and information and services that stimulate curiosity, allows intellectual growth, intellectual debate as well. And that's what a library is about, to foster that type of development. We're fully committed as a library system to freedom of expression, an environment where people feel safe. Queens Public Library has been involved in Drag Story Hour for a number of years, and will continue supporting Drag Story Hour just like other story hours. Those who want to take advantage and come and have their children there, they have the ability to do that, and those who don't, that's their right as well. And we have a civic responsibility to make sure that we reinforce the values that we believe in, and that's an open, democratic institution for all.
Everyone wants a place where they belong. We definitely love to open up the doors and make the library something that the community owns and has a stake in.
Even as the community changed, the library has changed and evolved and has made the difference. I think that is just so important for people to know they have this resource to come to.
Yeah, a lot of people come here, like my families, my father-in-law, my husband, and my kids, they all here, use the library.
A lot of customers have told us that they left with happiness because they feel like we were able to help them. Whether it was finding a book, whether it was finding a program that was needed for them to get a job.
Our mission is really to transform lives. We're here to provide a safety net for the public to make sure that they can take full advantage of everything that we have to offer. People just rely on the library, plain and simple.
Good evening. I'm Dennis Walcott, President and CEO of the Queens Public Library. It is a pleasure beyond words to be with you here tonight. I love this place. I really love QPL. We have a great team of people providing services to the community, and as Carl mentioned earlier, the library plays an important role connecting Queens residents of all ages and backgrounds to books, educational resources, the arts, the internet, workforce skills, and so much more. All of our 66 locations provide some or all of these services, but each one is distinctive and reflects the people and the communities they serve. And tonight, though, we have a unique opportunity. We're going to visit 3 of those special places, 3 of them that have a special collection or a focus. And our first stop, and this is a stop, so Queens is the international destination and subway line, so our first stop will be here in Long Island City. Please join me as we pay a visit to Hunters Point Library.
This is a Queens-bound 7 train. The next stop is Vernon Boulevard, Jackson Avenue.
The people here really love this building. They love this library. It's a safe space for them. We're all about building communities and being inclusive. The neighborhood, it became an industrial hub in the 1900s. Right around the late 1990s, the Parks Department put a lot of resources in revitalizing it as public park space. Local neighbors felt that we could really use a library. Our grand opening was September 24th, 2019. We have the distinct honor of having Queens Library's first environmental education center. We also have a great environmental collection here, focusing on topics like sustainability, upcycling, climate change, biomes, even the local flora and fauna of Hunters Point.
People think of us as being a place to get books, but we all know that's so much more than that. Everything that we do here at the library in some way addresses children's curiosity about the world. The environmental topics just tie in with that greater goal of teaching kids about the world around them.
We started our Discovery Day, which is a whole day festival that incorporates science activities and environmental consciousness.
This week, we're going to be talking about earthquakes, okay?
For children's, we do Science Everywhere. Every week we focus on a different theme. We learn about different biomes across the world. For older adults, Eco Yoga, where we also use our outdoor space. Being by the river and also by Gantry Park is really helpful. We try to incorporate that as much as we can.
I go to the library 3 times a week. I like looking at the window because I like looking at the view and reading and coloring. One day we came to the library for Science Now, and there were a ton of animals, and I even got to pet a snake.
We do a great deal of STEAM programming throughout the system. STEAM is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Almost any programming we do, there is some aspect of each of those folded into it. Science is everywhere.
We want to promote the idea that environmental health is not just environment, it is also you. We are in the environment here. We share the environment with animals, with other people, with the communities.
all of Queens can benefit from environmental programming, and Queens Public Library is here for that.
One of the things I love about libraries is the democracy of the library. In this most diverse place on the face of the earth, Queens, everybody can walk in the front door and make use of our resources.
I feel like that's our way of creating the next generation of naturalists and scientists and environmentalists. Once children know about the world around them, they are going to care about it and want to care for it.
So, in addition to having the Environmental Education Center, the Hunters Point Library really does have a magnificent view. And it is now my honor to present the first award of the evening to Brian Lehrer. Brian is a unique and very special individual, like thousands of New Yorkers and people really throughout the country and the world. I've been listening to Brian every morning for years. Since 1989, he's been hosting the Brian Lehrer Show on WNYC, New York Public Radio, where he covers local and global news, politics, and life in general. Think about that. Since 1989, Brian has helped New Yorkers make sense of some of the biggest news stories of our lives, such as, sadly, the 2 terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center, the 2008 financial crisis, Hurricane Sandy, the 2016 elections, COVID-19 pandemic, the 2020 elections, Black Lives Matter movement, the January 6th attack on the Capitol, and so much more. And I imagine Brian will be devoting a significant amount of time of what we're going through right now when we talk about the environment and the intersection of our worlds and dealing with what's happening outside. He has been a constant presence in the cities that Always Changing introduced us to various mayors Dinkins, Mayor Giuliani, Mayor Bloomberg, Mayor de Blasio, Mayor Adams, and he's been a moderator of televised New York City mayoral elections and debates since 1997. He has interviewed world and national leaders from President Barack Obama and Representative AOC to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, or former Majority now Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, and former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. And he has taken calls from everyday New Yorkers, even me, to talk about the neighborhood and global issues that are important to them. So how did Brian become one of the most trusted voices in journalism in the country? He grew up in Queens. I mean, as I said, he went to Bayside High School and then studied music and mass communications at SUNY Albany, where he cut his teeth as a DJ on the campus radio station. Yeah, wow is right. After graduation, he became a DJ again and host of listener call-in shows for radio stations in Albany, Columbus, Ohio, Norfolk, Virginia, before returning to New York. Along the way, he earned a master's degree in journalism from The Ohio State University and master's in public health from Columbia University. The Brian Lehrer Show was recognized with a Peabody Award for radio that builds community rather than divides in 2007. In addition to the Peabody, Brian Awards include 7 Associate Press New York Broadcasters Best Interview Awards and 2 Best Talk Show Awards from the Garden State Journalists Association. Brian has appeared as a commentator on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, C-SPAN, and elsewhere, and he has written op-ed pieces for the New York Times, the Daily News, Newsday, and Slate. The New York Times calls him a cross between Tom Brokaw and Mr. Rogers. So that's an interesting intersection. The high school social studies teacher we all wish we had, equal parts civic treasure and municipal therapist. I often say that the library is one of the most open and last open, truly democratic institution, and Brian also fits into that vein with his show. You know, you listen to the Brian Lehrer Show, you're going to hear quality conversation, objective conversation, insightful questions, poignant questions, and pointed questions, and getting responses and not just taking no for an answer. Brian, for your tireless effort, your trusted work connecting your listeners to decision makers and thought leaders, to one another and to the communities in which they live, I am pleased to present you with the Queens Public Library Award and your very own Golden Queens Public Library card.
Dennis, thank you very much. Thank you for that way too kind introduction. Everybody can hear me, right? This is working? Good, I see heads nodding from the back. So hello, everybody. And Dennis, by the way, thanks for calling in that time. We appreciate it. And thank you, everybody who works for the Queens Public Library for everything you do. You know, my mother grew up until 3rd grade in the Morrisania section of the Bronx, and her building was down the block from her local public library branch. She tells me that she used to go to the library routinely after school as a place where she could find books for free and sit quietly and read in between the school day and her busy home. But in 3rd grade, the family moved to another building in the area, and it had no library close enough for it to be her 3rd space anymore. And my mother, then 9 years old, felt bereft. She told me last month that she had decided then and there that when she grew up and could choose a place to live on her own, it would be someplace near a library. And when that time came, the place she chose was in Queens. So I grew up my first 10 years in the Clearview Gardens apartment complex, and the library was not down the block, but my parents had their first car by then, and they would drive me frequently to the Whitestone branch in a shopping center near the Whitestone Bridge to borrow books for school and for pleasure. I remember that when I was in 3rd grade and had recently gotten interested in baseball, I tried to take out about a dozen baseball books one day, and my father and the librarian gently talked me down to about 3 because I could always come back if I went through those. 2 years later, we moved to Bayside, and my branch became the Bayside branch near the corner of Bell and Northern Boulevards. It was very near my middle school, 158, and sometimes I would walk to the library after school to do a little bit of research for a paper. Not too much, because my work habits at the time were pathetic. But I can look back now and appreciate that the branch was nearby and may have turned some of my potential B minuses into full-fledged Bs. In high school, when I was a little more studious and needed a little more research services firepower, I would sometimes take the Q28 bus into Flushing and visit what to me was the big, imposing, very serious main branch, where else on Main Street near the 7 train terminal. To come full circle, my mother, now 95, no longer a driver, is extremely grateful that in recent years she has once again, like when she was very young, been living in a building down the block from a library, the Bay Terrace branch on 23rd Avenue. She's borrowed books and joined a book discussion group there, and she is also grateful now for the mail-a-book program for people who can't get to the library in person. So that's my personal Queens Library story. But beyond that, I've become aware over time of how the library has grown to be the kind of lifeline that I personally never had to use it as. We've been hearing about some of those ways for internet access in a world of digital inequality, for cultural relevance and cultural translation in the most diverse county probably in the world, for helping with job and education services, searches, let's say for all kinds of story hours and other ways of being inclusive at a time when exclusion through book banning and even prosecuting librarians for sharing inclusive books seem to be political talking points and campaign platforms. So thank you for this honor, but the honor is mine, Dennis, and everyone. Thank you, Queens Public Library and Queens Public Library supporters, for everything you do.
And Brian, thank you. And we will get the award, but also, as you may have heard at the beginning, only 4 people, and there'll be more today, but not that many more, will have their Golden Queens Public Library card. So we thank you for everything that you have done, and we thank you for your family, Brian. Have a good evening, and thank you for everything. Okay, take care.
Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Latham, Executive Director of the Queens Public Library Foundation. Thank you all for being here tonight and for your support of Queens Public Library and the Queens Public Library Foundation. All of the funds raised here tonight will help support the many programs and services offered every day at all of our locations. And as Earl mentioned earlier, we're grateful for the operating support provided by the City of New York, and that's what keeps our doors open. But the reality is we couldn't provide the number or diversity of programs offered at our libraries without private donations, and you help make that possible, so thank you. Another way that you can support Queens Public Library is to sign up for your Queens Public Library card. And if you don't already have one, we made it very easy by putting a special edition Met's Queens Public Library card at everybody's table. You don't all get the golden library card. That's only going to be Sigrid and Jacqueline and Brian, but you do get the Met's Public Library card. And all you need to do is bring it to your local branch to sign it up and have it activated. And before we break for dinner, I wanted to thank HarperCollins and Penguin Random House for providing our literary centerpieces tonight. The books are a thank you gift for all of you, and I hope you'll take one home with you at the end of the evening. And we will be back to present awards to our next two honorees after dinner. Enjoy your dinner. Thanks.
The next stop is 103rd Street, Corona Plaza.
When I think about Langston Hughes, I always think about Dream Deferred. Langston Hughes was part of the Harlem Renaissance. He was a poet, he was an activist, and when they came together to think about a name for the library, all of them kind of agreed for this library to be named after Langston Hughes. It takes the community to build something and have the vision, and then act upon that vision.
Langston Hughes has always been and was designed to be a non-traditional experiment in library services.
The Library Action Committee was formed by community activists. It was formed because of the needs of the community. Corona East Elmhurst did not have a library.
They realized that libraries were not part of the tradition of the Black experience because we were not allowed to use libraries for so many years. In many cases, didn't have libraries anywhere nearby.
Now we've created in our community a circulating library with Black history and abundance of Black information.
The non-traditional approach that we took to library services meant that programming became our foundation. If you want to bring people into the library, a place that they're not used to being and in many cases could not go into, you don't do it just through books.
Fast forward to 50 plus years later, we have that opportunity to be so inclusive and be able to open our doors, which always goes back to why it's so amazing that this name is the Cultural Center, because no matter the culture, we can celebrate it here.
While the community has changed from an African American community to now is predominantly a Latin community, the library has changed and evolved and still satisfying and supporting the community.
Understanding that this library was created because a community outside felt that it did not reflect their culture is something that we take very seriously and take a lot of pride in. We're fortunate to be able to preserve the legacy of the African Americans while just adding additional programs and services. We also have the homework assistance programs. It was started in 1971, and I think that's so important to understand because they were the first. That excites me when people rediscover the libraries. Seeing that we have a hip hop coordinator or we have entrepreneurship classes, workforce development, and they realize that we can serve them beyond they could even imagine.
For me, this is just an amazing space for resources. It gives me ideas for my own work, a space for me to just soak in all the information. Where it's encouraging me to have an exploration of a bigger world outside of my small space here in Queens. I was able to showcase my work outside in the gallery. The community was just very welcoming. The kids were like, oh my God, you're a photographer, because I'm a woman, Dominican, right, Latina in the community. And that's a possibility that they perhaps didn't even see for themselves.
The Black Heritage Reference Center is the heartbeat of Langston Hughes Community Library and Culture Center. Anybody who's looking to be exposed to the Black experience, African-American, Africana culture, anybody who's looking to do research, anybody who's looking to read books by Black authors can use the library and are welcomed here.
Every individual has a life that connects with broader historical themes, events. In a neighborhood like Corona, where the Langston Hughes Library is located, there are people who live in the neighborhood still who were there at the time that Louis Armstrong and others were here. The Queens Name Explorer, it's an interactive map of all the places in Queens that are named after individual people. Part of our job as the Queens Public Library is to connect that history and then bring in new folks who have just come to the area and make them feel welcome. Also, make sure that they have an understanding of what the legacy of the area is.
This non-traditional, federally funded experiment is now the catalyst for all the things that libraries do across the country.
To me, this library represents a dream deferred that has come to be. It's more than just a brick and mortar, borrow books kind of place. It's a safe haven.
And now I am thrilled to introduce our next honoree, the acclaimed author Sigrid Nunez. Sigrid Nunez is the author of 8 novels, many of which she refers to as being in the hybrid genre because they combine elements of fiction, nonfiction, and autobiography. Poets and writers said whether one of her works is called an autobiographical novel, a fictional biography, or just a good old-fashioned novel, her readers know Sigrid Nunez through the secrets and lies of fact and fiction, even if they can't always tell the difference between them. Her first novel, A Feather on the Breath of God, was published in 1995. Although a work of fiction, it has many autobiographical elements and is inspired by her own story of growing up the child of a German mother and a Chinese Panamanian father in Staten Island. Like Sigrid, the narrator explores new worlds through reading and ballet, although the book is about so much more. The New York Times praised it as a forceful novel by a writer of uncommon talent. The last of her kind, Sigrid's 5th novel, is the story of 2 young women who meet as roommates at Barnard College during the late 1960s, where Sigrid also received a degree in English. The novel explores issues of identity, moral complexity, and the shifting line between principles and fanaticism. The Friend, winner of the 2018 National Book Award for Fiction, is a novel about grief and loss, but it's also about memory, writing, love, and relationships, including between people and their pets. Sigrid's most recent novel, What Are You Going Through?, is a meditation on friendship, empathy, mortality, and what it means to die well. Both novels are narrated by a female writer and teacher who lives in New York City, and both blur the boundaries between fiction and memoir, essay, and narrative. Sigrid received an MFA from Columbia University. In addition to 8 novels which have been translated into 30 languages, Sigrid is also the author of Sempre Susan, a memoir of Susan Sontag. Her 9th novel, The Vulnerables, will be published this fall. Besides the National Book Award, her accolades include the Whiting Writers Award, a Berlin Prize Fellowship, the Rome Prize in Literature, and a Guggenheim. Sigrid is a member of the American Academy of Arts and Letters. She has taught at Columbia, Princeton, and the New School, and has been a visiting writer or writer-in-residence at Boston University, Amherst, Smith, Baruch College, and Vassar, among others. She is currently on the faculty of the MFA Creative Writing Program at Hunter College. 2022 Queens Public Library Award recipient Gary Steingart said, "Sigrid Nunez has long been one of my favorite authors because she writes with the deepest intelligence, the truest heart, and the most surprising sense of humor." Sigrid, for your masterful ability to take ideas, stories, and observations and connect them in a meditation on the human condition, it is my great pleasure to present you with the Queens Public Library Award and a Golden Queens Public Library card.
Good evening, everyone. And thank you so much, Susan, for that introduction. And my warmest thanks to the Queens Public Library and its supporters for this wonderful award, for recognizing my work alongside that of so many whose own contributions to arts and letters I admire. And what could be more fitting than that I should be receiving this honor from a public library, because without the public library, I would not have become a writer at all. I grew up in a household where there were not many books, but early on, encouraged by my mother and by my public school teachers, I discovered the marvelous world of free, borrowable books. The first lending library I was old enough to go to on my own was the Bookmobile, parked in our neighborhood on Staten Island for a few hours every Saturday. I still recall the excitement of being told that because it was summer and the Bookmobile would be taking a break, each of us could take out several more books above the usual limit per borrower. Easy to recall what books I chose: the red fairy book, the blue fairy book, the green fairy book, the yellow fairy book, and so on. Later, when I was old enough to take the bus by myself, I spent most Saturdays at the library in St. George near the ferry terminal. And older still, I began taking the ferry into Manhattan and then the Uptown subway to hang out at the old Donnell Library on West 53rd Street. I had found my church. I like what the philosopher Schopenhauer called reading, thinking with someone else's brain. For me, from the beginning, it was a kind of double blessing. Reading was a private, solitary experience, something you could withdraw into, and yet when you were reading, you were never really alone. I had found my church, and dreaming that one day I'd see books of my own sitting on library shelves, I had also found my future. And once I began writing, a favorite place for me to work was, of course, the library. Last month at another event, I happened to see Jackie Woodson, and we spoke of this upcoming gala and how we'd be receiving, along with the Queens Public Library Award, a golden library card, which we agreed was very exciting. The turning of some ordinary object into gold is precisely the kind of magical transformation that fed my literary imagination, reading all those fairy tales as a child. But even as a child, I knew my library card was always golden. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for those beautiful words, Sigrid. And now we're going to make our last stop on the 7 train to visit Flushing Library.
The next and last stop is Flushing, Main Street.
We are the central nucleus of the Flushing area. You know, we're the heart. So a lot of customers come to us for support and help.
Kids come to the library to get the homework help, to go to our after-school program. Some seniors come to the library to read newspaper, to be with people, to enjoy a quiet moment. The library is a way to promote intellectual freedom and free access to information. The history of Flushing Library goes back to 1858. We are the busiest community library in the country. About 5,000 people visit the library every day. We want to provide programs and service in the library to reflect the diversity in our community. Our book collection is in 40 different languages, and our multimedia collection is in 27 languages. The programs and service we provide in the library is based on community need. We launched a program called the Culture Bridge Program Series. We want to promote culture appreciation and culture respect.
I think that's one of the special things about the Queens Library is that we do so many things in so many different languages. The Job and Business Academy is a place where Anyone can come in and work on their work skills, resumes, cover letters. One of the most fulfilling things that you can hear is that you help someone with their resume and they actually got a job. We are serving about 60 customers in our entrepreneurship programs that helps budding entrepreneurs feel like they have enough information that they can move forward and start their own business. We are really focusing on getting a Chinese entrepreneurship program here at Flushing. Chinese is a language of need for many different programs.
If you do not have the opportunity to learn, to be exposed to basic digital skills, then you are cut off from the majority of work that exists. What the library does is providing that access. For a very long time, we've had public computers, we've had free Wi-Fi. We've been expanding the reach of that Wi-Fi well up to 450 feet. Our digital literacy and JBA hubs are primarily focused on software, workforce readiness, as well as intro to Microsoft and various technologies. We provide a safe space for people to come, feel no shame as they try to pick up something new. It's really important because it enables them to continue down the path towards a career that they're dreaming of.
Sometimes I don't have the computer available. I will come to the library to use computer here. It's easy for me to access here. I joined in the class, the English class. At the beginning, I came to America. When I look for the job, I write the resume here. The environment is very comfortable. I just hope people can use this library all the time. No matter for your work, for your study, for the kids, for adults to learn your own culture, everything included here.
We try to provide a space for learning for everyone. Programs that serve job seekers, asylum seekers, as well as formerly incarcerated or justice-involved individuals.
When customers walk into the library, they feel a sense of urgency. That excites me the most, to have a customer walk away with a smile on their face. Whatever they came in to do was achieved.
Good evening, everyone. I love that we got to travel the entire 7 train line in Queens without ever leaving our seats. Good evening. I'm Wanda Chin, Vice President of the Board of Directors of the Queens Library Foundation. I am so pleased to present our final award of the evening to Jacqueline Woodson. Jacqueline Woodson is the author of over 30 books, most of these for children and adolescents. When her first book, Last Summer with Maison, was published in 1990, there were just a handful of books for young people written by Black authors or illustrators, which means that there were few books where Black children and other children of color found characters that reflected them. Jacqueline said, "I wanted to write about communities that were familiar to me and people that were familiar to me. I wanted to write about communities of color. I wanted to write about girls. I wanted to write about friendship and all of these things that I felt were missing in a lot of the books I read as a child." For the past 33 years, Jacqueline has helped to redefine children's and young adult literature to encompass more complex issues and reflect the lives of Black children, teenagers, and families. Jacqueline's books, which range from picture books to young readers, to young adult novels and poetry, explore issues of gender, class, and race, as well as family and history. Using sympathetic characters who are facing realistic situations, her books have tackled subjects like teenage pregnancy, interracial couples, and homosexuality. Although these may not seem like groundbreaking topics for children's literature today, they certainly were in the 1990s and early 2000s. Unfortunately, many books with these themes are being challenged today. Jacqueline spent her early years in South Carolina before moving to Brooklyn at the age of 7. She attended Bushwick High School, studied English at Adelphi University and creative writing at the New School. Her books for young readers include the Coretta Scott King Award, an NAACP Image Award winner, Before the Ever After, the New York Times bestsellers, The Day You Begin and Harbor Me, Newbery Honor winners Feathers, Show A, and After Two Back and Dee Foster, and Each Kindness, which won the James Adam Children's Book Award. She is perhaps best known for her New York Times bestselling memoir, Brown Girl Dreaming, which won the 2014 National Book Award for Young People's Literature, the Coretta Scott King Award, a Newbery Honor, and the NAACP Image Award. She's also the author of novels for adults, including Red at the Bone and Another Brooklyn. After serving as the Young People Poets Laureate from 2015 to 2017, Jacqueline was named the National Ambassador for Young People's Literature by the Library of Congress for 2018 to 2019. She was awarded the Hans Christian Andersen Medal in 2020, and later that year, she was named a MacArthur Fellow. Her newest middle grade novel, Remember Us, is due later this year. I'm wowed. I'm like, Jacqueline, for your incredible body of work, which provides young readers with opportunities to connect with characters and situations that reflect their real lives. I'm so honored to present you with the Queens Public Library Award and your very own Golden Library card.
I just want to get up here and say everything that Sigrid said. And sit down. It's so amazing to be here at the Queens Library. I know I'm going to be right back here at the Langston Hughes Library Friday with my bestie, Toshi Regan. But I was listening to everything that was going on this evening and just kind of getting choked up. First of all, I live in Brooklyn. I live in a neighborhood called Park Slope. I have Brooklyn on my keychain, on my necklace. But I just remember growing up, it was Brooklyn Queens Day. And we got it off from school, but Manhattan people didn't get it off. Staten Island people didn't get it off. The Bronx didn't get it off. So Queens was always my kindred. And then it's so funny being in Park Slope, and whenever people ask, well, where should we eat? I'm like, Queens. Like, why are you here? Because it's not happening like it's happening in the most diverse borough in the world, which I believe that is still the case, living in Park Slope, where my family is the only family of color on our block, and hearing the narrative about how diverse New York is, and knowing it's diverse, but it's segregated, and knowing that Queens is the place where you can come to see people of all colors engaging and get really the best food in the world. It's a lot. I grew up in Bushwick, the old Bushwick, not the new Bushwick, which was very racially and somewhat economically diverse in its time. And my library was the Washington Irving branch of the Brooklyn Public Library. And I always talk about how back in the day, libraries were so that you had to be quiet in them still, and the librarian was looking out for you. So my mom was a single mom, and we had to go to the library after school, as Stephen and I were talking about, because it was a safe space. It was this place where your parents would send you while they were working full time and pick you up at the end of their workday, and they knew that their kids were going to be okay. And that, for me, that was the place where I had all the access to all the books that I could ever dream of. And for me, the books that I loved were the picture books that took me to a whole other place. So it feels like from the womb, the library was home to me. We had the Encyclopedia Britannica and the Childcraft Encyclopedia as our books at home, because back in the day, those were the books that you were able to buy 1 or 2 books at a time until you had a whole set. And for parents who were hoping their kids would grow up and go on to high school and college, those were the books that they felt would do that, would aid in that journey. So I grew up in Bushwick. I went to Bushwick High School. My sister went to Hunter College High School. My brother went to Brooklyn Tech. My other brother went to Julia Richmond, and I'm now a Brooklyn mom. And my son goes to Millennium Brooklyn. My daughter went to Beacon, but New York to the bone, and I totally believe that we're all connected in that way of being a part of this place with its bad air quality today that we can't go without acknowledging, but also a place where we love our land and we love the history that comes with this land. And I know the Lenape were here before us, and I want to acknowledge the people who came before us. And I want to acknowledge all of y'all. I want to acknowledge the Queens Public Library for giving me a gold library card. When I told my daughter, Toshi, that I was getting this, she said, can I use it at the Brooklyn Public Library? I'm like, get your ass on a train. Like, go to Queens Public Library and see if you can use it there. But I'm grateful. I'm happy to be a part of this library family. I'm happy to be a part of this socialist movement that is allowing books and stories and queer people being able to tell those stories and read those stories to kids and just access. That's what the library has always been about for me, and that's what it continues to be about for me, and I am so grateful to all of you in this room and so excited about this gold card. Thank you.
To all the honorees, congratulations. We are so happy for you and thank you for everything that you've done. I just want folks to do one thing. It is now 8:59 and we said this is going to end at 9. And so we're getting you out of here on time. So thank you for your support. We appreciate you and have a safe rest of the week. Thank you very much.